Morning, everybody. Eric Chaconis here for PT on Ice Tuesday, Extremity Tuesday. Today we're going to show some techniques to improve shoulder elevation, but in the prone position. So a lot of times we'll just naturally have people supine. We'll be lifting their arm up passively, working range of motion in that position. I want to show you a few manual therapy techniques and exercises that you can use in prone. So this can be nice because you maybe want to go back and forth between some thoracic or rib techniques. You want to treat the cervicothoracic junction, and then, we're not having to flip the patient over or change positions. It's sort of nice because they're already in prone. The other thing it does is it naturally gives you an angle of shoulder flexion that's relaxing for the patient, right? So in supine, I have to pick the patient up to get them to 90 degrees. I have to pick that shoulder up, and sometimes they guard. So if you're struggling just to get to 90, prone is nice because they'll naturally fall and relax at that sort of 90-degree shoulder flexion angle, which is very helpful for the patient that's maybe a little irritable or just in the post-operative phase of healing where they're still guarding and stuff like that. So, first thing that I can do as a low-level type of intervention in this position is just try to simulate a Codman's type of movement, right? So the arm is just hanging and relaxing, and I can just sort of passively provide some slight oscillatory movements. I could do it in circumferential type movements, right? I can go clockwise, counterclockwise. I can go in the sort of back and forth horizontal abduction and adduction. I can work shoulder flexion and extension, and that can be kind of nice too for that patient that's just having a little bit of trouble getting that shoulder flexion movement going because of irritability. So this should be relaxing, calming, sort of preparing them, to work some increasing shoulder flexion angles. The other thing you can do in this position as sort of a low-level type of thing is just provide a little bit of traction to the shoulder. So a little bit of traction, providing relaxation, just getting them used to your hands, getting them used to the fact that, we're going to start moving the shoulder a little bit, chipping away at that range of motion. I could get a little more aggressive with that and increase the flexion angle with that traction, right? So I'm just pulling, sort of providing a distraction type of movement. If I want to get more aggressive, I can stabilize the scapula, right? Making sure that I cradle the humerus. I'm going to kind of just keep them very comfortable and work flexion like that. And then the other thing I can do is I can provide anterior and posterior directed oscillatory glides by just cradling the proximal humerus, fingers underneath the front of the humerus like that, thumbs on the back of the humerus, and I'm just going to oscillate that shoulder joint there too. So same thing, increasing the shoulder flexion angle, increasing elevation, and just oscillating anterior and posterior in that position. But the whole goal of all this stuff is to be relaxing for the patient, to reduce guarding, to reduce irritation. Just get them familiar, with the fact that we're going to start moving the shoulder. I'm not forcing anything. I'm not being overly aggressive. Not using a lot of force at all with these kind of low-level techniques. Now, let's say we're further along, and now we have already. We got about 130 degrees of elevation, but we'd love to, get another 30 degrees, right, in the next few visits. So what we can do now is I can increase that angle of elevation. So I'm going to pick the shoulder up, right, to the available range that I have now. And in that position, I'm going to provide the distraction. And I can do a little inferior glide, right? Come up. I can angle, I can couple movements. So as I'm picking that shoulder up like that, higher angles of elevation, I can work sort of an anterior, inferior directed glide. See if I can get you guys a little closer here. All right, so this manipulating hand is on the proximal humerus. It's providing an inferior and anterior directed motion, while this hand is cradling the arm and providing a traction force. So I'm going to pull with that arm, and then I'm going to provide the glide with this manipulating hand right here, increasing angles of elevation. If you're having trouble with dissociation between the scapula and the humerus, you can get up here and sort of stabilize that scapula, if you will, provide that distraction force at higher and higher angles of elevation. Now let's say I get 20 more degrees, they're starting to feel a little bit better, they're moving a little bit better, but you're not getting carryover, right? So you want to integrate an exercise. So one nice thing that you can do is actually, in prone, use a stool. So I've got a rolling stool here, and I can place the patient's hand on the rolling stool, and I'm just going to have the patient work elevation with that rolling stool. I can assist her in the beginning, particularly if you have a carpet in your clinic and the stool doesn't really roll very easily, then I can provide some assistance and then eventually have her work elevation, all from the convenience of that prone position. The other thing I can do is I can add a little bit of an end range technique with this. So as she comes up to end range, I can give her that little bit of distraction, and then I can provide that inferior and anterior directed glide, have her work back, and I'm just chipping away at the range of motion. Now we talked in the beginning about integrating techniques for the thoracic spine and rib cage, and this is a nice way to do that as well. So if as she's elevating, I can work those ribs, right? So you know when you elevate your shoulder, you need to have good mobility of the rib cage and thoracic spine. Those ribs on that side are going to upwardly move on that side, and so I can sort of facilitate that. So as she elevates, I'll just give a little superior anterior directed force to the ribs there, kind of working each angle of the ribs. The other thing I can do is I can work that scapula. So as she's moving up, I can upwardly rotate that scapula. So we've talked before about the scapula assistance test and about kind of the shoulder symptom modification stuff with Jeremy Lewis. Well, this is a great one. If you've got somebody that's responding well to that scapula movement, that assisted scapula movement, you can kind of integrate, all right, that as a treatment. So every time she elevates, I'll work it there. And obviously, there are a whole host of other things you can do with weights and stuff like that. If you caught us today on the podcast, if you listen to us on the podcast, go to ptonice.com, I believe. We have a couple different URLs, but find our website, because on our website we post all of these PT on Ice daily shows, and so you can watch the video. We have those all on Vimeo. You can watch the video of all these techniques that I showed here today. So thank you guys so much for listening. This is Eric Chaconis from the Extremity Syndromes course. Let's see, Ryan Michelson, neck position in prone like this ever give you troubles for pain? Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point, Ryan. Yes, I mean, I think you want to be careful of neck position. So in this case, like Cindy's been in, let's see, right rotation the entire time with her shoulder, but I would play with that a little bit. I think there's something to changing that neck position. Maybe in the beginning I have her straight and neutral, so I have a little bit of a better setup with like kind of a pillow under her forehead, so she's in a neutral cervical spine position, and then maybe progress to rotations. But that's a great point, because rotation of the neck definitely matters, right? That's going to create movement and change position of the thoracic spine and rib cage down and through the upper trunk, and that can influence the way that the shoulder moves in that position. So yeah, thanks for that comment. All right, well, everybody have a great day. See you next time.